Welcome to Movie Moments. Today we're opening up the vault to look at a 90-second scene from a 2017 film entitled American Made, starring Tom Cruise. For context, I first saw this movie in theaters at a time in my life when I was running on fumes. I was pastoring a church that was understaffed for the size of our congregation, running back and forth between 3 locations to preach and engage with our members, all while trying to coach my 9-year-old son's baseball team, assist with my 7-year-old daughter, take care of my parents who were both living with us, and spend time with my wife who was getting a bit overlooked in the midst of everything else. Which explains why what I'm going to be explaining next grabbed me as it did. American Made is the true story of a pilot named Barry Seals who begins flying covert operations for the CIA during the Iran-Contra affair. But he soon finds himself involved with the drug cartel, smuggling contraband into the United States, because what else would one do on a return flight from Central America when one's plane is empty? However, it is this double secret life, coupled with some personal problems involving his brother-in-law, that soon create a scenario for Barry where he's overwhelmed by all the things he's trying to juggle. It's at this point in the film we see Barry at a bay of payphones along the outside of a building. His 2 young children are in the car waiting. In the distance, a van that's been tracking his every move is nearby. And all the while, Barry is running from payphone to payphone, engaging in conversation with both the cartel and his brother-in-law, who is creating a range of issues for Barry to deal with. Back and forth, putting out fires, attempting to keep the parties on the other end calm, and trying to stay calm himself. "I've got it," he says. "I'll take care of it," he promises. Until finally, at the scene's crescendo, the leader of the cartel forcefully replies, "We'll take care of it." The phone clicks off, and in that moment, Barry realizes he's not as in control as he had originally thought. And in that moment, ladies and gentlemen, I realize I'm like Barry. For all the reasons mentioned earlier, I was doing just as he was, jumping from thing to thing, fully believing I had everything under control, and yet I didn't. And while I would love to tell you that in that moment I went home and things changed, they did not. In fact, I kept that pace up through COVID. Yes, COVID. In other words, it took me several years to actually see that what I was doing wasn't healthy. I remember during that time having a conversation with one of my friends. He said, "What you're doing just doesn't seem sustainable." Now there's an interesting word, sustainable. Interesting because it's not the word we typically use to measure whether or not we should be doing a certain thing. No, we ask this, is it successful? As if that's the only criteria. If it's yielding a return, why wouldn't we do it? Well, perhaps because it's not a thing we can maintain. Sure, of course, in the short term, yes, you, I, we can sprint for a season, but no finish line? No off-ramp? No end? Well, that's where sustainability becomes the critical factor it is. That's where we must weigh out where we invest our time, not merely based on the tangible results, but on all the intangible ways in which it's affecting our lives. Perhaps you can relate. Perhaps like me, like Barry, you've been asking the wrong question. Is it successful versus is it sustainable? And in the process, you've been doing things you have no business doing. Well, if that's the case, my friend, just know you don't have to keep going. You don't have to keep doing. You don't have to spend years simply continuing to do what you've always done. No, there is another way. And so in those moments, you find yourself running from this to that, attempting to convince yourself and others that you've got this, you'll take care of it. May you, in those moments, find a way to evaluate your reality. May you have the courage to make, at times, the difficult decision to create a life that is productive, but also manageable. And in the process, may you do things that don't just last today, but tomorrow, the next day, and the day after that. This has been Movie Moments with Ryan May.